Hi everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I hope you received this message well. I first want to say thanks to Joe Dvorak. He recognizes that he's in a position of power, has a voice, and a platform, and he's choosing to share that with voices like mine. And yeah, I'll just go back to what I was saying. I wrote essentially an open letter to my colleagues, and I'm just here to voice that out. If you want to share this video, I think that's fine. These are just words that I feel like I need to say as an ally to my friends in the Black community. But I come to you with mixed feelings and wanted to speak out and give my perspective on the recent events that have taken place in our country. The murder of George Floyd and the blatant injustice the nation has seen has probably affected you too. I need to say that while I and no other person of color have the responsibility to speak out for our communities, it needs to be said that if I don't, who will? This alone is a burden that little to no one else in our office carries as a predominantly white workforce. I want to identify that I'm only speaking from a gay, brown man's perspective. I can't speak for the Black community or for the Black experience. I can only speak for the experiences that I've lived through myself, and I hope others realize that too when they speak out for another cause. As you all know, I'm working on creating a racial equity glossary for the Bureau. The best word to define right now, from my perspective, is the term intersectionality. Intersectionality is a complex, cumulative way in which the effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism, may combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. This helps exemplify the emotional pain I feel, both towards my friends in the Black community and the ever so clear reminder that dark skin is inferior in this white idealized country. The intersectionality that marginalized groups share is a painful and a burden one. It's just funny right now. Yeah. It's just funny because, I'm getting emotionally compromised right now, and it's at the same point in time that I did when I originally was speaking out about this. It's never easy to just talk about this stuff, but it's certainly important to do so. And that's why I continue to just put myself out there and be vulnerable. And yes, I'm emotionally compromised right now because I'm angry, I'm sad, I feel powerless and fed up with the current reality. I am making myself vulnerable and putting myself out there like this because, again, if I don't do this, who will? I want everyone who's seeing this right now to take this moment in and acknowledge what's happening right now. Acknowledge what's happening before your eyes. This is the emotional burden, this weight and pain that Black and brown people have to carry into their workplace. Let us acknowledge that during these work hours and this formal meeting, of which I'm originally supposed to talk within, I am crying now. I am crying right now, and you are not. And if you're crying, it's not for the same reasons. This isn't always blatantly visible, but it is right here and right now. If you're uncomfortable, I think that's a good thing. This is just a small hint of what it's like to be a minority in a dominant culture. If you feel uncomfortable, please, do not run away, but embrace it. The Black community doesn't need your sympathy right now. It needs actions and results. I want to say this loud and clear. It is not the responsibility of brown and especially of Black people to educate white people on racism. When others look for those in the marginalized community to speak out, automatically the feelings of tokenism falls over us. I do so because I'm tired of not seeing enough action take place. I also realize that sharing my unique perspective as a gay brown man carries weight for those who don't live my lived experiences. I felt the urge to speak out because as a marginalized individual, but more importantly because as another human being, I understand that my friends in the Black community need support from their allies because they are being mistreated, they are receiving the bare minimum, and are being held to a lesser view. Everyone can support the Black community. I want my colleagues to understand that they are right where you're right where you need to be. in your racial bias journey, if you start researching and asking questions, systemic racism is a larger issue. And what needs to happen right now is to start understanding how this trickles down to all facets in the world. There is context, and context should always be considered. I don't care for single-sided arguments because they're just not valid. They don't consider their overall picture. Please find solace in speaking out no matter where you are in your journey in this conversation. Even from a white perspective, allies can occupy a lane to help promote this conversation, whether it be correcting others, fighting for better policy, or being part of the peaceful protest. Everyone can elevate this discussion. I'd also like to share a perspective from a contract employee who's a minority working for city government. And this is difficult. This is difficult because, I'm still pretty young. I'm still pretty new to the company, to the bureau. I am essentially at the lowest part of the totem pole, speaking up to people in positions of power, my supervisors, my manager. But I do want to voice that it's not acceptable that someone who's technically outside of city employment status is being the leader in these issues within the bureau. I feel fortunate, so fortunate, to be in the position of where I am right now, to simply just voice my voice. I thought I'd never be in a position to do so. But technically, I don't bear the same representation as my city employed colleagues. And that technically, I represent a contract that works for the city of Portland, and in no way does it specifically say that I need to do this equity work. This is ironic at minimum. I could be fired or laid off much easier than my union represented coworkers. Coronavirus happened, and for a second there, I thought I was going to lose my job. But also on top of that, I recognize that I'm integrated in much of the equity-driven efforts here in the Bureau, and that would ultimately cause a huge setback on these efforts as other city employees aren't motivated to push these issues forward. As a person of color, that in itself is demoralizing, because again, if I don't do it, who will? That additional burden and weight is on my shoulders, yet no one else here feels the same pressure. I'll be blatantly clear and honest and say that this lack of effort is visible, and it's disheartening, especially in times like these. But I also want to make an equally powerful point in that why does it take a murder of a black man in full public view to motivate others to take action or feel emotion? If me crying in front of you, expressing my pain motivates you to take action, I want you to ask yourself, why did it have to come to this before stepping up? And I just want to wrap up in saying that everyone can help elevate this discussion. Please educate yourself on these issues because it's mainly on you to do so and no one else. Thank you.